Hello, I'm Nicholas Collett, and welcome to my living room podcast, Much in Little. I'm a professional actor and a writer. Normally I'd be out on the road doing live performances, but for the last year I've not been able to do that because of you know what. It's been a tough time for everyone. We all need a bit of hope, a bit of laughter, some good news. So, I was delighted to be asked to make a contribution to the Living Room project run by Live and Local. Live and Local are a rural touring organisation who help to bring professional art of all kinds into community spaces, and I've done a lot of shows with them over the past few years. The idea was to create something where an artist could join with the community to tell a story, just as if they were in their living room. And my immediate thought was, brilliant! Let's do something positive, something heartwarming. Let's find a story that will light up the darkness. I'd done a couple of shows for Arts for Rutland in Rutland County Museum, and their organiser, Joy Everett, contacted Live and Local to say they were interested in working with me. So that's why I'm here. And this is the story of Much in Little. It's February 2021. We've been in lockdown for what feels like forever. We've been isolated, inside, disconnected. At times it's felt like the country's completely divided, and yet it also feels like we've all united to fight the coronavirus. I'd like to err on the side of optimism, that we all have more in common than that which divides us. Some people have advocated for a good news channel to counter the doom and gloom. Maybe we should hear more about the random and not so random acts of kindness. At the end of the day, aren't we all just trying to get along the best we can? My original idea was to write an audio drama based on an interesting Rutland figure or event, and I'm a big history fan. Joy emailed me to say they'd done a call out to the community for stories, and one that leapt out at me was about the Rutland Foodbank. Well, I know a bit about the area, and my initial thought was, why would Rutland need a food bank? Rutland, a rural idyll. Beaver Castle, Uppingham School, Rutland Water, the building made from lovely stone, also the birthplace of Rutland Weekend Television and the Ruttles, the spoof Beatles band. Yes, Rutland is beautiful. I've been a regular visitor since about 1989, touring with various theatre companies. A cursory look at the internet will give you an idea. It's the smallest county in England, only 18 miles by 17 at the extreme points. The next smallest is the Isle of Wight. But Rutland has many positive things in its favour. Life expectancy is over 81 years, putting it in the top 1% in the UK. According to various sources, it's prosperous in terms of income, car ownership and house prices. Rutland is uniformly prosperous. Levels of deprivation are among the lowest in England, and there's relatively little inequality, with very few local pockets of deprivation. So what's Rutland really like? Here's someone who should know. Dr. Sarah Finesse, the Lord Lieutenant of Rutland.
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because everybody has this image of Rutland, which until you really get to know it, you think, yes, it's one of the nicest, happiest places to live in the country, which indeed it is. It's a wonderful place to live. Very beautiful. We have 138 million in tourist money coming in each year because rightly people love visiting, and we've got wonderful Rutland Water. We've got beautiful countryside, lots of lovely places to walk and ride and all sorts of things.
Sounds lovely, doesn't it?
But then when you get to know it,
oh, hang on,
you realise that there is real rural poverty here.
Oh, is this because of COVID? The Miley Cyrus virus. Sorry, I'm just getting down with the kids.
Before COVID, there is poverty, there is real need.
Sorry, I'm leaping to conclusions here.
I think that COVID has sort of revealed that we have needs, and that the food bank, certainly the existence of the food bank, reflects those needs that pre-existed COVID. But what was extraordinary was the way in which Ali Wainwright at the food bank sort of managed to transform it and respond to this enormous 21% increase in demand. And the fact, that they were all dealing with people who'd never ever had to ask for food. Suddenly, there were quite a lot of people who'd never claimed social security or anything, and who were suddenly in real need. So that was quite a challenge, which they met wonderfully.
So there was a need for a food bank in Rutland before we got hit by the pandemic. Perhaps I was being a bit naive, judgmental even, that it was a wealthy place without any issues. Then I checked myself. Should I be surprised? It turns out that this is a very complex issue, one that I knew relatively little about. But it has given me the opportunity to tell you a wonderful story. Food banks. It seems to be a sensitive and difficult subject. It's 2021. Should people be going hungry in a rich country like the UK, with the 5th biggest economy in the world? Is a food bank a symbol of broken Britain? Or is it a symbol of a caring Britain? People seem to have lots of different attitudes. Some see them as a free lunch for the work-shy, others that there's a pressing need for them, and that no one should go hungry. In 2019, the Trussell Trust, whose mission statement is Stop UK Hunger, commissioned a survey of 12,000 people. The headline figure was that 87% of respondents said hunger was a problem in the UK. So, why do people use food banks? Well, there are some groups that might seem obvious. The homeless, the unemployed, those on benefits, those on low pay. They all struggle and need help. The food bank gets referrals from all sorts of places. Rutland County Council, the Citizens Advice Rutland, Rutland Community Wellbeing Service, local support agencies such as the Longhurst Group, the Bridge, local schools and churches. As I've dug down, I've found out all sorts of interesting things. That the whole issue is much more nuanced than I first thought. Sometimes people need food for themselves and their families. Perhaps they're waiting on a benefit payment. They need to pay for electric or gas. Sometimes they need the food to free up money to pay for other things. Sometimes things happen unexpectedly, and there's no contingency to help them cope. In a rural area like Rutland, you need a car. Public transport often can't get you to work and back. So if that car breaks down and needs repairing, you're in a bit of a catch-22. But if they can divert the money that they would spend on food items, they can fix the car and get back to work. All these different things make for a complex picture, and everyone is fighting a battle that nobody else knows anything about. So how did the food bank work before the pandemic? I spoke to Susan, one of the volunteers.
I volunteered back in the day. I think I've been there for about 3 years now. And we were in the old building, and it was run very much by the earnest and esteemed ladies of the church. Back in the day, we always had clients come to us. So it was an open door policy with little tables, and we used to make them cups of tea and sit and chat and do the order with them. And it was always very face-to-face.
There were supermarkets donating food, individuals donating cash. The team were able to sit people down, give them food, point them towards advice. But when the pandemic hit, everything changed. Firstly, that open door policy had to stop. Many of the volunteers were over 70 and had to shield at home, and some of them weren't happy about it. There were even dark mutterings about the implications of the Age Discrimination Act. So, no open door, and a massive increase in demand for the food bank. It hit hard.
And then all of a sudden, with the crisis hit, we had awful things. So there was a chap turned up with his 2 little boys who were primary school age, and he worked for an agency, lived in rented accommodation. He'd done 6 days of a 7-day week, and he'd just been laid off and not been paid, and he had no way of paying his rent or feeding his kids. And it face to face, it was a real shock. And yeah, he wasn't upset, he was bemused. And all I could say is, look, keep coming here, we'll keep feeding you, don't worry, I can't pay rent. And things like that were a real shock.
Things had to be sorted, and quickly. They suspended the Friday morning session at Uppingham Church and also stopped client face-to-face sessions in the distribution centre, but they kept the door open to receive referrals. They split up operations in the board, and they invested in technology, iPads to speed up the process. But what about personnel? The volunteers who make it all tick?
Yeah, but then a whole new group of people, some of whom were on furlough and others who were just younger and realising there was real need, stepped in.
I spoke to Toby, a university student who answered the call to help.
2 doors down from me is a lady called Lisa, and she's worked for the food bank for quite a few years. Is that right, Ali? Do you know? Yeah. And we've known Lisa quite a few years, and I think, being in such a quite a small community like Rutland, it's not like you always kind of know somebody. I think like a lot of people, I was kind of looking for things to do with my time as well. Well, no, Lisa had said that they needed kind of a bit more help, and I was bored.
I think we all felt like that sometimes.
I did want to actually help out, and I wanted to do something that is kind of actually helpful and not just. Well, I mean, it's worthy, isn't it? It feels more genuine when you're actually doing something that you want to do and doing something that is kind of directly helping instead of bureaucratic stuff which kind of gets in the way.
So what's the actual process like?
We have a packing list. We have set packing lists for different numbers of people, numbers of families and things like that, and we have it set so it's as you go into the warehouse, which is stacked with shelves and shelves of food. You go through the packing list kind of methodically as if you're going down like a supermarket aisle, and you've got each thing to tick off. So you put it all in your basket as if you're at the supermarket, and then go around the whole thing. So you've got everything that was on the packing list, bring it through, weigh it in, bag it up.
The new system led to the creation of a new job, the data fairy. What's a data fairy do, Sue?
Turning on the iPads, that's very important, and remembering to turn them off. We've only just managed to train one of us to do that. Printing off the orders for the day, coordinating with the clients and with the delivery peoples, and making the tea.
Good to hear that tea is involved. The volunteers were determined to keep Christmas special, so there were little extras, especially for children. And in 2020, Easter eggs.
One of the shops gave us Easter eggs. We had a wall of Easter eggs, Thorntons as far as the eye could see. You had to step over the Thorntons to get through. It was madness.
I think that this effort from the Rutland community is the epitome of country kindness. It's a phrase I've heard a lot, but it really means something to me now. It stretches right across the community, from the volunteers to those who, without making a fuss, make donations to pay for the iPads at the food bank.
Rutlanders are incredibly generous. We find that often when there are charitable projects going on to raise money, that they will do particularly well in Rutland. People are very, very good. And in fact, through the pandemic, I've had people, philanthropists, ringing me up and saying, don't want my name mentioned, but could you just tell me where I need to direct some money or how I can help?
Ali tells me that in the 12 months leading up to mid-March 2021, the Rutland Foodbank had provided over 40,000 meals. Imagine that. There are, thankfully, 4 meals on my table tonight for my family. Imagine that times 10,000. That is truly an extraordinary achievement. This isn't the end of the story, though, because as Dee tells us, there was a bit of an international incident too.
We also had a bit of a crisis with a group of circus performers.
Right.
Who were, we found, I don't know, how did we find them, Ali?
We delivered to a field.
We delivered to a field.
Go on.
The gate was locked, and we were told that there was a child in the family and there was no heating in the caravan.
There were 2 jugglers. Oh no, she was a clown, that's right.
Clown.
Yeah, clown and 2 jugglers, I think. So I got the story out of them, and they'd come across from Ukraine, and they were in a camper van, a very basic camper van. They'd spent all their money on this van, on petrol to get here, on their insurances. They'd got a contract from February for the circus season in England, and of course it didn't materialise, and so they were stuck in a country. Their visas didn't allow them to earn any money, so they couldn't get a job doing anything else. They couldn't busk or anything like that. And the poor things were stuck here, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. This led to me having these Facebook conversations with them. And it would be a case of, Dee, can we please come and get some food on Friday? Yes, you can. Come at 11. They always did. I think it was something like the 5th of December they came in and they were off. They were going home. I think the clown and one of the trapeze type artists, I think they were married. I think they were a couple. And I was like really sad because they told me they got a daughter back in Ukraine and they hadn't seen her for 8 months. And so they came in and she was crying, wasn't she, Ali? She cried. She gave us all a big hug, which of course she wasn't supposed to do, but she did. And she brought us flowers and a card. And on that was the Friday, and then the Saturday I got all these photographs of them on the ferry and all this sort of thing. And then I kept messaging her saying, are you home yet? They had 5 countries to go across to get home, and obviously there was a lot of work involved with the councils getting visas, getting permission to travel through all these countries for them, and that's why it had taken so long. Anyway, eventually, after about 2.5 weeks, I got photographs of their hometown, and then they sent me a photograph, and I think it must have been with her mother. It was an elderly lady, and the 3 of them were there beaming, and it was in time for Christmas, and it was so lovely to see them all reunited. But we'd all sort of really taken them to our hearts, because by the time they went, they could speak a bit of English, and they were such lovely people. And I just think, it gives you a warm feeling to know that you've helped these people.
A saga of an international difficulty that was solved with country kindness and a little bit of cooperation. It's given me a warm feeling too. But it wasn't all one-way traffic.
It's been a lifeline for me to be able to go in. I live on my own. I'm a teacher, so I've been at home. So me and my team, our bubble on a Tuesday, the 18th, we love it because we all get together and we're actually in the same room with each other, working for a couple of hours. So while it might help other people, really helpful for me too. It's kept me sane.
Here's what I take away from all of this. Kindness begets kindness. There were benefits for the volunteers too. A fillip for their mental health and positivity during lockdown. And there are some circus performers in the Ukraine who will tell their friends of the time that people in Rutland helped them in their hour of need. Who knows? It might even be a story that they tell their grandchildren. It seems to me that the story of the Rutland Foodbank should be celebrated. There's a saying that most of us are only 3 paychecks away from disaster. It could literally happen to anyone. But it makes me feel warm inside to know that there are people out there who care enough to make sure that country kindness will prevail. Isn't it interesting that Rutland is so tiny and yet has such a big heart? Perhaps that's why it's so appropriate that the county motto is much in little. Ali summarises this perfectly.
The support from the haves for the have-nots has been exceptional.
So, if you have some change knocking about in your pocket, why not make a donation to your food bank? Or maybe think about volunteering. Maybe you can make a difference. Anyway, that's the end of my story. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care, stay safe, and be kind.